This is Doug DeMuro, and today we are going to talk Carrera GT because the recall is over. It's all done. For the last 18 months, the Carrera GT has been subject to a recall, and for part of that, it's been on a stop drive order, an emergency order telling you not to drive the car, which I ignored, and everybody I know ignored. But the good news is the recall is here. The fix, the replacement parts are ready to go, and today I'm going to explain what the recall is all about, what Porsche is doing, and how I feel about the whole process. Let's do it. Today's video is sponsored by Cars and Bids, which is my online car auction website for modern enthusiast cars. So far, Cars and Bids has hosted more than 20,000 car auctions of special, cool, and interesting cars like this, and this, and this, and this. So, if you're looking to buy or sell an enthusiast car, do it on Cars and Bids. Okay, so a little overview of the Carrera GT recall situation. Back in April of last year, April of 23, so about a year and a half ago, Porsche issued a recall for the Carrera GT, even though it had been out of production at that point for 18 years. And basically Porsche said, hey, there is some suspension component that could crack and break when exposed to salt air or road salt, and it could cause cars to crash. This is unusual. You don't usually see a lot of recalls for vehicles this age, especially for like a suspension component. I mean, an 18-year life. Porsche said in the recall notice that they had not had any issues. They had not had any collisions or crashes yet, or any failures, but that they noticed that the part was not holding up to snuff. You know, an 18-year life for a part, that a lot of people would argue, hey, that's about what you can expect to get out of a part. If stuff starts to break at 20 years, so be it. But Porsche took an interesting step in issuing a recall for the car. And I was fine with it at the time. I had just bought the car 6 months before, and I thought, hey, that's weird, but recalls happen, no big deal. And Porsche said in the recall, hey, you have to have your cars inspected. And if the car is inspected by a Porsche dealership and it's okay to drive, it's not cracked, there's no corrosion, then you're good to go. And so I had it inspected and they said it was fine. But a little while after that, something different happened. Porsche announced a do not drive order. They decided that this issue was so dangerous that they were going to stop people from driving these cars completely until the recall fix was made. And the really annoying part was they didn't have a fix. So they basically said, stop driving it and someday we'll give you parts so you can fix it and drive the car again. And since that stop drive order was announced, telling us never to drive our Carrera GTs, telling us not to drive this dangerous death trap car. Since that was announced, I've driven mine about 3,000 miles, and I am not dead. I am not at all dead. You can see living. In fact, my Carrera GT is not dead either. It's still living too. So, it's okay. Now, part of the reason that I was completely comfortable driving the car is that I had so the suspension components affected, I had them inspected twice, and both times I was told no corrosion, which didn't surprise me. This car hasn't been driven much, and it's been in California almost its entire life. And so there's not a lot of salt here, there's not road salt, there's not salt air. It was not really a concern. But issuing a stop drive order on probably the greatest driver's car of its era it came with a lot of controversy, especially because these cars are now worth, over $1 million. And so a lot of people didn't want to not drive their Carrera GTs. And this was especially controversial in the UK, which is kind of a perpetual nanny state. They're like TV cameras looking at every inch of every city, trying to make sure nobody does anything illicit. And there's a lot of regulations in the UK. And in the UK, insurers actually canceled people's insurance on the Carrera GT and said, you cannot drive your Carrera GT until this whole thing is fixed. Now, in the US, many cars, in fact, right now, millions of cars, different vehicles, are subject to stop drive orders. You couldn't really get away with that here. Many popular cars are currently on a stop drive order that most people probably don't even know about, and they're still driving the cars. But I still took the directive, with the thought, hey, this is a serious issue and I want to get it fixed as soon as possible. And so I've always paid attention to the recall. When is the fix coming? When is the fix coming? And a lot of people were upset. I mean, this is a valuable car. People want to drive it. People were angry that they couldn't drive this expensive car because of this order for this old part. So anyway, the point is, it's all been solved. The fix has arrived. Porsche has come up with the fix to solve the Carrera GT recall, and Porsche is sorry about making us not drive our cars, even though every Carrera GT owner that I know kept driving his car. But they're sorry that we've all had to park our cars, that we haven't driven them, wink, wink. And so they actually came out with a pretty generous recall plan for all Carrera GT owners. Now, most of the time when a recall is issued, the automaker, by law, has to replace the affected parts for free, and that's it. You take the car in, they do the repair, and then that's it. That's the whole thing. But Porsche has gone beyond that. And so in this case, they're offering affected customers of the Carrera GT 3 things. Number 1, a free set of brand new tires. Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires. And I looked, it's about $2,500 in free tires. Number 2, a service credit for around $3,500 US, because in theory, these Carrera GTs have been subject to a stop drive order for the last year and a half. They've probably been sitting unused, and so some stuff might need to be replaced and repaired. So Porsche's giving people a free $3,500 service credit. And the last thing they're doing is the actual recall itself, which Porsche claims is $109,000 in new titanium parts going into the car for the suspension. Interesting. So that's a pretty big deal. Not just a simple recall, like a new gas cap, which happens sometimes, but actually a huge amount of really costly repair on new parts, $3,500 in free servicing, and brand new tires. That's an interesting and generous offer. So you're probably interested in my thoughts as a Carrera GT owner. And I'll tell you, I do have one kind of interesting take on this, which is the tires situation. So Carrera GT was sold back in 2004, and there were some rather high-profile accidents. There was a death, 2 deaths actually, in Southern California on a racetrack right after the car came out. It was really sad. And so that happened. And then a few years later, Paul Walker was killed in the car, obviously along with the person driving. And there have been a couple of other high-profile accidents in Carrera GTs. Lewis Hamilton, the Formula One driver, his father crashed. There have been several, Jay Leno spun one around on a racetrack. There have been several legitimate, high-quality people who have been in serious accidents in the Carrera GT. And one of the causes of the accidents is the tires. The original tires on the car, tire technology has evolved in 20 years. I wouldn't say the original tires are faulty, but some of these cars are now on original 20-year-old tires, and tire technology has just evolved. So I think Porsche is using this recall as an opportunity to get these cars back into dealerships and to get new tires on them. And then that solves one of the safety concerns of this car. Because with all these high-profile crashes, of course, one of the famous things about this car is it was one of the very last analog supercars. Manual transmission, not a lot of driver aids, but the tire issue, at least Porsche can't do anything about that now. You can't go back and add, traction control and a better stability control. You can't do that stuff, right? But what Porsche can control is the tires. So I think what they've figured is, hey, these cars, there's 1,270 Carrera GTs. That's 1,270 lawsuits waiting to happen when other people crash them. And by the way, Porsche has been sued by widows and lost. Serious lawsuits. And so Porsche's like, here's an opportunity for us to get these cars back, put new tires on them, and at least solve that variable. At least get these cars onto kind of a new benchmark for safety. And so as much as I think a lot of the Carrera GT owners are going to go around saying, oh, Porsche's giving me new tires. Yeah, how cool. I think really it's a self-serving thing for Porsche. They figure $2,500 a car is a pretty good deal, actually, to eliminate the possibility of some serious lawsuits, especially on these cars that are on old original tires. Maybe that's a little bit conspiratorial, but that's my view. I think that Porsche is not doing this out of the goodness of their heart, but out of the thought that they're a little bit anxious about what might come from these cars in the future with their old tires. $3,500 in service is actually a pretty good idea. For cars that have been sitting for so long, it's neat. And Carrera GT requires an annual service at the dealership that now costs around $2,000. And so providing a $3,500 service credit is a real legitimate goodwill gesture from Porsche saying, hey, not only do we have your next annual service covered to get the car back in good shape to get on the road, but when it's been sitting, there's probably some issues that have happened. And so, you can apply the next $1,500 to cover those. And it's true, my car has faulty tire pressure monitors right now. And, I will apply the next $1,500 in my service credit to replacing them. That's great. And so I think that's a good idea. And then the recall parts itself, Porsche's touting it's over $100,000 in new parts. That's great. I don't really care. Truthfully, I never thought this was that much of a problem to begin with. These cars aren't being driven in the winter in salt-rich environments. And so I never really saw this as that big of a deal, but Porsche did. And so they're putting in these new parts. And I guess that's great. And I'm curious if the car drives better, but I suspect it'll feel about the same. Regardless, it'll be nice to have the fix. But that leads me to one interesting thing about this whole recall situation, which is the following. Porsche sold the Carrera GTs when they were new, And 10 years later came out with another supercar, the 918 Spider, which didn't really sell all that well initially. And now they're about to come out with yet another supercar, the Mission X. And who are the people in the world who are most likely to buy the Mission X? It's people who have $1 million Porsches already, right? They've already demonstrated that they're willing to spend big money and buy a Porsche supercar. And so I think Porsche's sitting here thinking, okay, we have this faulty part on this car. The way to take care of it is to give people new tires, give people a service credit, and replace these parts, and like do a great job for them so that hopefully they become Mission X customers. And I really think that there's a lot of that thought going on right now at Porsche, because from what I understand from the people I've been talking to, Mission X hasn't really exactly been a hugely exciting thing for Porsche customers. There's not a lot of people out there saying, yes, I want a Mission X. A lot of my friends who have Carrera GTs and 918 Spiders are not raising their hand for Mission X. It is a fully electric supercar. A lot of people think that that kind of ruins the experience of a supercar. Obviously, for a daily driver, electric is fine. But for a supercar, I don't really know. And so I think Porsche's hoping that by getting the Carrera GTs back and giving a nice goodwill gesture to customers, that will make them more open to buying a Mission X. But also, getting the Carrera GTs back to the dealership gets Porsche to get the names and addresses of everyone who has a Carrera GT now. And you know, a lot of these cars haven't traded hands or been to a Porsche dealer in forever. My car, I haven't serviced this at a Porsche dealer ever. The primary guy who services the Carrera GT, Rapasi Motorworks in Connecticut, I've sent the car there twice to have him do work on it. And that means the car is out of Porsche's network. I bought the car privately, not through a Porsche dealer. Obviously, Porsche knows me, and so they've been in communication directly and personally with me about the car. But if you were just a regular guy who bought a car used and then didn't take it to a Porsche dealership, they wouldn't know who you are. Well, now Porsche's like, this recall gives us an opportunity to get these people's names and information and start trying to sell them on Mission X because we know they're already interested. Now, to be clear, I think the tires is an opportunity a little bit for Porsche to get out of future lawsuits and kind of modernize the cars a little. I think that the recall is an opportunity for Porsche to kind of get some customer information on potential Mission X buyers. But the overarching thought of this recall is it was a safety concern and Porsche did want to make it right. And so I think there's some of the little conspiratorial stuff like, Porsche's kind of playing some funny business here, but mostly I think they just want to make the cars safe. This car has presented some issues for Porsche over years because of its kind of dangerous nature. And I think they want to get the car safe, get them back on the road in a good state. And I think that's the majority of the bulk of why they're doing this recall. I can promise you they wouldn't have stopped drive the cars for a year if they were really trying to get in the good graces of their customers. But anyway, that's the recall. That's the situation. My car has not had the recall done yet, but the parts have been ordered through my local Porsche dealer, which is in North San Diego, Carlsbad. And the car will go up there in the next few weeks, get the recall done, and I'll let you know how it goes afterwards and what happens. And I'm looking forward to my new tires, even though I just got tires 2 years ago, but I'm not going to turn down a fresh set of tires. And by the way, before I sign off, I do want to point out I drive this car a ton. I've used it an insane amount considering how valuable it is and how much miles knock down the value, and I am in love still. It's been 2 years almost since I bought this car. I am absolutely in love with it. I calculated the other day, I've driven this car 3,500 miles in less than 2 years, which is a lot considering I got 2 little kids. I don't really commute, but I drive it every opportunity I can. And I calculated the other day that I have done 26% of this car's miles in 8% of its time on the road. I truly adore every minute. I feel sorry for the previous owners who didn't really get a chance to drive the car like they should because they were so worried about preserving every little penny of its value. I am losing value in driving the car, but I am gaining this amazing appreciation for quite possibly one of the finest road cars ever manufactured. I mean, it's in my top 3, along with the Ferrari F50 and the Pagani Zonda, the greatest driving cars of all time. And I wouldn't trade the moments I've had this car for anything, and I truly think it's one of the greatest cars ever made, and I love it. And every time I see it, I can't wait to drive it again. But anyway, there you go. Those are my thoughts on the Carrera GT recall. I'll let you know how it goes, what happens with my car, and what happens next.